I got married to a guy who basically was a con man. Didn't realize it. I think when you're in love, you just want to go ahead and be with the person. It turned out to be a very abusive marriage. So it was all forms of abuse, mental, physical, sexual, I mean, all of it put together. And I think when you're in it, you do not know, you start living it because you think it's the norm. Also in India, the idea of divorce is not taken really well. We don't grow up with the idea of like, oh, if it's not working out, this is an option. Divorce typically is never an option in India. Things are changing now. My parents are very chill. They did realize that their daughter is suffering, and I had support of family, which is a big one. I was independent financially, which was a big one. And it still took me a year to realize that this is not okay. Any form of abuse is not okay. Not once, not twice, never.
So anything around domestic abuse and particularly divorces,
yes,
in most cultures are not really acceptable.
Absolutely.
And like I know for a fact, and I think you and I spoke about it, that there are a lot of women, including in Indian culture, who stay married not just because they are unhappy, but because they are in an abusive relationship.
Yes.
And they just don't have courage to get out because social pressure is so strong.
Social pressure is strong. Also in I think a lot of women stay in it because they're not financially independent. A lot of times women are dependent on their husbands, at least in India. It's normal. I mean, I don't question them. It's great if they can live a good life without working. But I really think one needs to be financially independent. The second one, I think, is we grow up to believe that you need to take care of the family, you need to take care of the husband, you need to compromise. Your marriage is a compromise, and I think compromise is such a big topic by itself. So I also feel like we grow up to believe that we need to like compromise. But what we don't realize that as women is that you don't need to compromise on your own self-esteem, your self-respect, your identity. Let someone not decide what your identity is. And in this whole abuse, trust me, when you're in it, you don't know what the hell is going on with you. Like, you're just living it. You're just trying to accept what has just happened. You're trying to understand that, oh my God, like, did I just go through this form of abuse? What do I do about it? Or let me just cry it out in the bathroom, come out. I need to be normal for the in-laws. I need to be normal for the world. And you're just trying to live that whole abuse situation that you forget in the process that all of this is not okay. Any form of abuse is not okay. Sometimes women end up living their lives like that because they have children involved and their parents are like, no, you cannot come back to our house. So I think you really need to, overall, for me, it comes down to financial independence, where it becomes easier that if my family is not with me, forget it. Like, I'll still get out and I'll live happily with my kids or by myself. I don't know.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know it's a huge, huge topic, and that everywhere around the world there are no more like companies and initiatives that try to help women in those domestic abuse situations. So I'm sorry you had to live through that. I mean, and also, and at the same time, congratulations for having enough courage to actually challenge also social status quo.
Yes.
And again, there are so many examples of women who are in a domestic violence situation, and that becomes the story for decades and decades and decades.
Yes.
And often they never get out, or even if they do get out, they feel highly traumatized, which is also normal, but then often it's very hard to rebuild life.
It's a lot of trauma, and for all the women who are fighting the abuse or getting divorced, like, it is a difficult phase, but you really need to put yourself together and get out of it. Like, I can have my parents, my family, my friends, and everyone telling me it'll be okay. They can support me in every way possible. But by the end, it comes down to yourself. Work on yourself, work on your confidence, and you have to learn to feel good just by yourself. I think that's a big one for the trauma. So what happened next with me is I got out, and within 5 months, I'm feeling really sick actually just before being separated, and I'm very strong on intuitions, so I knew I'm falling sick and I could feel it, and I told my mom a month before I was diagnosed with cancer that, Mama, I really feel my body's telling me I have cancer, and she thought I was crazy. And I'm like, no, just be prepared because this is going to happen. I saw it coming. I felt my body really sick. And 6 months in almost to being separated, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and pretty much in its last stages.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and it was very randomly diagnosed by one X-ray on my mother's birthday back in my hometown. I'd gone to celebrate with her, and on her birthday I got this news. So it was hell. I mean, to say the least. My parents, I don't know how they dealt with it. I broke down, obviously. It was a very, very difficult time for the entire family. And I think within a few days of me just being diagnosed, they had to start the treatment, else I would not survive it. It was very difficult. I went through 6 chemotherapy sessions. They tried a new treatment on me because it was so, it was really spreading and all of that. And I almost lost my life after the first round of chemo. It was just like, everything was just not happening correctly. And then, but in this whole thing, the one constant pillar that I had was my parents. And the love that I got from my parents really was all that motivated me to try and live. Live through the chemo, which isn't easy. Live through the septic shock that I had after the first round of chemo, which very few people survive. I was in the hospital in isolation. So it was all very difficult, but I think one step at a time. You need to take one day at a time and start moving forward, and with all help of your family.
I don't even know what to say. It's like one of those stories where you would say, yes, sorry, it happened to you, but but the words can't really justify that.
When someone tells me, oh, I'm so sorry, you're a survivor, I'm like, why are you sorry? I'm right here, sitting, touchwood, all healthy. I mean, don't be sorry for me. Be there for me. Okay. Help me spread my story, because if I do that, if I manage to help even one more person going through it, I feel like I've done something right in life.
And so, if you were to say a message now, perhaps to at least one person who might be going through this right now,
yes.
So what would you say?
It is anything but easy. Chemotherapy, I think one of the first things that happens with chemo medicines is depression, And to top it all, physically you change, you lose your hair. I mean, I lost all my hair, my brows, all my hair. My teeth got darker, my skin got 4-5 shades darker, my nails were black, and you're not allowed to meet people half the time because you're so low on your immunity. All in all, it's not a great situation, but you've got to find your groove even there and heal in some way. So I was doing art therapy, which helped me a lot. For 8 hours, I would just sit down and do pen art. I mean, anyone else who would see me would think I'm crazy, but 7-8 hours, I would just keep doing that. I started following a healthy diet right then, because anything which helps me in my energy is good at that time, because you're low on energy, you're low on life. But just keep strong. And the biggest lesson I learned in this whole thing is, don't refuse help from family. Once we start growing up, we get very awkward if your mother comes and helps you, or your dad offers help, or your brother or your sister offer help. After a few days, you're like, oh no, why am I troubling them? Am I taking too much time of their life? Let you take all their time. Let you take all the help. Just take it and work on healing yourself and be positive. Very difficult, but it's possible.
And you're an example of that,
yes.
Right? We don't really know 100% yet why some people have cancer. They're
yes.
all kind of serious about
yes.
it.
Yes.
But I think you did mention that sort of at the back of your mind, you did have a thought that
yes,
perhaps it was also a residual effect of all those years of abusive relationship.
Yes.
Because not only just the relationship itself, but all the suppressed emotions and conflicts.
Absolutely.
And mental inner fight within
yes.
yourself, and physical fights, and so definitely it contributes to this.
It does.
So I feel it's one of the reasons why it is so important to actually take control of your life.
It is.
And if you are not in the right situation, or especially again if you're in an abusive situation, it's you have to get out. It's like your own right. It is your life. It is your body. It is your mind. So you are the one who need to take control over it.
Yes. You know, when you're in a situation like this, you end up manifesting the wrong. And I can't harp enough on that word manifest. I used to first think like, what rubbish is this? You know, like, what is this manifestation that people keep talking about? But trust me, like when I was going through it, every morning when I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, this is the situation I'm in. God, like, let me fall sick. Like, I don't want to live. Like every day if you're saying the same thing, like there has to be a point your body listens to you. Forget God listening to you, your body starts listening to you. And you won't believe it, Yana, when I went to my oncologist who was going to design my whole treatment, he literally asked me only one question when I met him. He's like, is there something going on in your personal life? Is there any stress? And I told him, yes, I am going through an abusive marriage. And he's like, well, that is one of the reasons for this. Because like I was a healthy person. There was no reason. Of course, cancer happens to randomly to anyone, but in my case, I truly believe I manifested it upon myself. I also am a very big believer of karma. So I might sound crazy to some, but then I feel like in my life, I went through, I was always listening to my parents, with them, with family, but I did go against them when I married my first marriage was a little against my family. So I feel like I had to go through this journey in order to cut out all the bad karma in this lifetime of mine. So I feel like the manifestation and karma together, I'm like, I'm a clean slate now. I'm ready to move on. And that's why I truly believe that my husband now, Abhishek, who I know since I'm 7 years old, I feel my soul had to go through this entire journey to end up being with Abhishek, who is truly my soul partner. So I believe in the circle of life.